In 1809, the largest pirate fleet in human history was moored off the southern coast of China. 1,800 ships, 70,000 pirates. A floating empire that had defeated the Chinese Imperial Navy twice, driven off the British East India Company, and fought the Portuguese to a standstill. It was commanded by a woman. She was 34 years old. She had been born a prostitute in a floating brothel on the Pearl River. She had joined the fleet only 8 years earlier as the wife of its former commander. And by that summer, she controlled more sailors than the Emperor of China himself. Her name was Ching Shih. She was the most successful pirate who ever lived. What happened next is one of the strangest endings in the history of the sea. She was born around the year 1775 in Guangdong province, in the humid south of China. Her family belonged to the Tanka people, a maritime community who lived their entire lives on boats along the coast. Qing law ranked them so low that it forbade them from settling on land. Shi Yang worked on the flower boats of the Pearl River, floating brothels that served sailors, merchants, and pirates coming and going from the port of Canton. Every surviving account calls her intelligent. She understood men in power because her livelihood had depended on it. She had learned to read men who lied for a living, to notice which merchants had money and which pretended to. She had spent her adult life watching the trade of the South China Sea from below decks, from the water side of the deals. In 1801, when she was 26, Zheng Yi, a pirate lord, came into the brothel. Zheng Yi was 36 years old, the head of a growing pirate operation on the coast. His family had been pirates back into the Ming dynasty. He asked her to marry him. She agreed on one condition. She wanted 50% of the plundered wealth and equal share in the command of his ships. According to Cantonese oral history, Zheng Yi wrote it into the marriage contract and signed. It would be the best business deal he ever made. For the next 6 years, they worked as a team. One historian later called Zheng Yi the unifier and patriarch. Shi Yang, now known by her Cantonese title Zheng Yi Sao, meaning wife of Zheng Yi, was the consolidator and organizer. By 1805, they had done the impossible. They had negotiated a formal confederation among the 6 warring pirate gangs of Guangdong province. Each gang kept its own fleet under a colored flag. The red flag fleet, the largest, belonged to Zheng Yi and his wife. The combined force numbered around 400 ships and between 40 and 70,000 pirates. Merchant vessels in the South China Sea paid tribute to them for the right to sail unmolested. Then, on November 16, 1807, Zheng Yi died. The circumstances remain unclear. Some accounts blame a typhoon off the coast of Vietnam. Others say he fell overboard in a storm. A few whisper that his wife killed him. He was 42 years old. His widow was 32, and she had one chance to hold what they had built. Zheng Yi had adopted a teenage boy named Zhang Bao, whom he had kidnapped from a fishing village at 15 and pressed into piracy. Zhang Bao was now 21, capable, well-liked, and the legal heir. Within days of her husband's death, the widow Zheng Yi Sao approached him, offered him command of the Red Flag Fleet, and within weeks took him as her lover. Within a year, they were married. Zhang Bao commanded the ships. His new wife commanded him. A Qing official later reported that Zhang Bao obeyed Zheng Yi Sao's orders and consulted her before making decisions. Under her sole leadership, the confederation grew. By 1809, she commanded at her peak an estimated 1,800 pirate ships and up to 80,000 men and women. Her largest war junks weighed nearly 600 tons, mounted 30 cannons, and carried up to 400 crew. She had built a floating nation. To hold it together, she issued a written code so severe that it terrified her own men. Pirates registered every piece of loot in a central inventory. 20% went back to the original captor. The rest went to a joint treasury that paid the fleet's expenses. Withholding loot before the general accounting brought strict disciplinary action, while a repeat offense resulted in capital punishment. Issuing an unauthorized order led to immediate execution without trial. Desertion was met with severe bodily penalties. Assaulting a female captive resulted in immediate capital punishment. If a crew member entered a consensual relationship with a captive, they were legally bound to marry and remain loyal. Breaking this vow also carried the severest penalty. Infidelity brought death. This was piracy run like an empire. By 1808, it was an empire the Chinese emperor could no longer ignore. In July 1808, the Qing Imperial Navy trapped a portion of her fleet near Canton. Most pirates would have fled. Ching Shih ordered the attack. She sailed at the Chinese admiral. Her ships boarded his ships. By the end of the fighting, roughly half the Qing naval force in the area lay wrecked or captured. She sailed home with several of the emperor's own warships added to her fleet. She did it again in July 1809 against a second imperial fleet. She raided coastal towns at will. In September 1809, her forces attacked Tao Chau Island and killed 1,000 civilians. She held the southern Chinese coastline in economic paralysis. The British East India Company, whose merchant ships her pirates were seizing in the Pearl River Delta, tried to intervene. Her fleet drove them off. The Portuguese Navy from Macau tried to intervene. Her fleet fought them to a standstill. In September 1809, her pirates captured an English East India Company clerk named Richard Glasspool and held him for 11 weeks before his ransom came through. He was the one Western eyewitness to leave a detailed account of life inside her fleet. He described a disciplined, wealthy floating city. Pirates prayed at shrines on the decks before engagements. Their leader, he wrote, was a woman of great fear and awe, whose officers addressed her in imperial language. By early 1810, the balance shifted. The Portuguese, having failed to defeat her at sea, began working with the Qing to blockade her fleet. She lost several ships in a series of coordinated attacks. One of her 6 subordinate fleet commanders, Guo Podai of the Black Flag Fleet, cut his own deal with the emperor and defected with his ships. The confederation was fracturing. She was 35 years old, and she did the arithmetic. In April 1810, she walked into the governor's office in Canton, unarmed. She proposed her own surrender terms. Her pirates would receive a full imperial pardon. They would keep whatever wealth they had already plundered. Her second husband, Zhang Bao, would take a commission as an officer in the Qing Navy and retain 24 ships and more than 1,400 of his own men. She herself would walk away a free woman with her personal fortune intact. The emperor agreed to almost every term. No other pirate leader in recorded history negotiated a surrender like it. She moved with Zhang Bao to Canton and then to Fujian province. They had one son together. Zhang Bao died in 1822 at the age of 36. She returned to Canton and opened a gambling house that also served as the discreet front for a large and profitable salt smuggling operation. She raised her son. She lived in comfort. Imperial officials consulted her in her later years on questions of coastal security. The woman who had once been the empire's greatest enemy now advised the state on how to defeat other pirates. She died in 1844, in bed, at the age of 69. Her son survived her, along with a substantial fortune she had, at some point in her career, taken by force from the sea. Blackbeard commanded 4 ships. Ching Shih commanded 1,800. Blackbeard's career lasted 2 years. Hers lasted nearly a decade. Blackbeard died at 38 with his head on a British bowsprit. Ching Shih died at 69 in a house she owned in a city she had once terrorized, having outlived the emperor who tried to hang her and most of the naval officers who had sailed against her. And yet, most books on piracy lead with Blackbeard, and few lead with her. She was Chinese, and Western histories overlooked the South China Sea. She also survived. Blackbeard's story ends the way readers expect a pirate's story to end. Ching Shihs does not. In Western memory, a pirate who wins is a businesswoman. That is what Ching Shih chose to be.